Lauren woke up to the sound of the bells ringing from the main church of Santa Fe, announcing that the long-awaited day had arrived. The soft morning light filtered through the bedroom curtains, bathing the white dress hanging beside the bed in a golden glow. It was supposed to be the happiest day of her life, but an inexplicable unease grew in her chest. She tried to push the discomfort aside, attributing it to the normal nerves of a bride. Daniel's parents' mansion was bustling. Servants rushed back and forth, arranging the final decorations and flowers. Yet, amidst the commotion, Lauren sensed a cold and hostile atmosphere. Catherine, her future mother-in-law, watched everything with a critical eye, offering no sign of approval. When Lauren descended the stairs, still in her robe, to check on a detail of the decorations, Catherine was quick to attack her with a biting remark. "A dress far too simple for a woman who wants to draw attention, don't you think?" she sneered, with a bitter smile. Lauren swallowed hard. She had chosen that dress so carefully, designing every detail with her own creativity and passion. It was a reflection of herself, but it seemed nothing could please Catherine. At the church, the guests were settling into their seats. The sun shone brightly in the blue sky, a sharp contrast to the coldness Lauren felt in her heart. As the doors opened and she walked down the aisle, she found Daniel at the altar with an expressionless face. He was distracted, looking at his phone, only noticing her arrival at the last moment. Lauren gripped her bouquet tightly, trying to ignore the disappointment threatening to steal her smile. The ceremony went on without major mishaps, but the tension was palpable. Daniel recited his vows with disinterest, almost as if he were rushing through the words. Lauren, on the other hand, poured her heart into every promise, trying to bring a spark of emotion to the moment. At the reception, things went from bad to worse. Catherine made a point of giving a public toast that felt more like a veiled humiliation. To the women who know their place, who understand that marriage is a partnership where the wife supports and the husband leads. "Lauren, I hope you'll learn this in time." The stifled laughter of a few guests echoed like a punch to Lauren's stomach. She looked at Daniel, hoping for some reaction, but he merely shrugged and returned to his phone. The anger and sadness she had been bottling up exploded when Daniel finally made a dismissive comment about her stress, calling her difficult. Difficult? Lauren stood abruptly, her voice trembling with emotion. Difficult is trying to build something with someone who doesn't care. Daniel, visibly annoyed at being confronted in front of the guests, responded aggressively. The argument escalated, and at its peak he grabbed her arm firmly, causing an absolute silence to fall over the room. Lauren looked into his eyes, feeling a mixture of pain and liberation. "It's over, Daniel. I deserve more than this." Her firm voice echoed through the hall as she removed her engagement ring and placed it on the table. Without looking back, Lauren walked away. Each step she took away from that place seemed to lift a weight she had been carrying for months. The white dress swayed in the wind as she made her way toward her friend Chloe's house, knowing she would find refuge there. Behind her, the sounds of the party faded, replaced by the rapid beating of her heart and the whisper of a new promise. To start over. Lauren woke up the morning after the chaos feeling a mixture of relief and sadness. The sunlight streamed through the window of the small guest room in Chloe's house, where she had spent the night. She was still wearing the robe Chloe had lent her, and the memory of the abandoned wedding dress felt distant, like a ghost from another life. Chloe walked into the room with a warm smile and a tray holding fresh coffee and bread. "How are you feeling?" she asked, sitting beside her on the bed. "I'm not sure," Lauren replied, holding the coffee cup in her trembling hands. "Part of me feels relieved for making the right decision, but it still hurts. It's like everything I planned just crumbled all at once." Chloe pulled her into a firm hug. "You're stronger than you think, Fer, and now it's time to focus on you. Not Daniel, not Catherine, just you." Their conversation was a powerful reminder that despite everything, Lauren had people who cared about her. Determined not to let the pain consume her, she began planning her next steps. She needed to let go of everything that connected her to Daniel, including the house they shared. Later that afternoon, Caleb, her older brother, arrived to help her. Together they went to the house she had shared with Daniel. Her heart pounded as she approached the door, knowing she would have to face not only Daniel, but also the emotions tied to that space. When she walked in, Daniel was sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone as usual. He stood up with a smug smile when he saw her. "I figured you'd come back. Everyone has their moments of drama, right?" he said, crossing his arms. Lauren took a deep breath, steadying herself. "I didn't come back, Daniel. I'm here to get my things. You and I both know this is over." Daniel laughed, but there was a note of desperation in it. "Lauren, you won't find anyone like me. You know that, don't you? We're good together. We just need time." She met his gaze, unwavering. "Maybe I won't find someone like you, and that's exactly what I want. I won't settle for less than I deserve anymore." Without another word, Lauren and Caleb began gathering her belongings. Daniel tried to argue a few times, but Lauren's firm responses left him speechless. By the end, she walked out the door with boxes in her hands, leaving behind the remnants of a chapter she was ready to close. When she arrived at the small apartment she had rented in the city center, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. The space was modest, with white walls and large windows that let in plenty of light. It was perfect for starting her fashion studio, a dream she had always kept close to her heart. As she arranged the space, with Chloe and Caleb's help, she felt something begin to bloom within her. Every stroke of paint on the walls and every piece of furniture placed was a small act of rebuilding. She decided to name her studio Revive, Rebirth. It was more than just a fashion studio. It was a symbol of the fresh start she desperately needed. That night, Lauren gazed at the stars through the window of her new space. There was still pain, and there were still doubts, but there was also something new, a glimmer of freedom and the promise that she was finally in control of her own story. The following days were a mix of intense work and heightened emotions. Lauren threw herself into the renovation of her small studio with relentless energy. Chloe and Caleb were always nearby, helping her paint walls, move furniture, and add the first decorative touches. Every detail of the space reflected her personality and passion for fashion. Colorful fabrics draped over racks, mannequins ready to showcase her creations, and a large work table covered in sketches. Despite her progress, challenges quickly emerged. Catherine hadn't taken Lauren's decision to break things off with Daniel lightly, and she made no effort to hide her disdain. It began with anonymous messages on Lauren's phone filled with cruel insinuations. "You think you can disrespect me and walk away unscathed? You have no idea who you're dealing with." Lauren knew exactly who was behind the messages, but she chose to ignore them. Focusing on her work was her best defense. However, the situation escalated. One morning, when Lauren arrived at the studio, she found an envelope shoved under the door. Inside was a photo from her wedding day, torn in half. The cut separated her from Daniel, and the violent way the image had been destroyed sent a chill down her spine. Chloe urged her to seek help, but Lauren hesitated. She refused to be intimidated or to give Catherine the satisfaction of seeing her fear. "Maybe it's just a childish provocation. I'll keep living my life as if nothing happened," she said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. But Catherine's persistence began to affect Lauren's budding career. Negative comments appeared in fashion forums, some accusing her of being difficult to work with and unreliable. It was clear that Catherine was using her influence in the industry to tarnish Lauren's name before she even had the chance to establish herself. The final straw came when a local supplier suddenly cancelled the delivery of fabrics critical for a collection Lauren was working on. Distraught, she turned to Caleb. "This can't be a coincidence. Someone is trying to sabotage me," she vented, tears streaming down her face. "I have no doubt it's Catherine, but we won't let this slide." "I'm going to contact an investigator," Caleb replied firmly. Lauren hesitated, but eventually agreed. It was time to confront the situation head-on. Caleb hired Arthur, a private investigator known for his discretion and effectiveness. As Arthur began his work, Lauren doubled down on her efforts at the studio, determined to prove that no one could bring her down. The following evening, as she adjusted a dress on a mannequin, Lauren felt a different kind of exhaustion. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional, yet deep inside there was something that refused to be extinguished, a flame of resilience. She looked at the mannequin and the vibrant fabric she had chosen for the piece, realizing that the studio wasn't just a dream fulfilled, It was a symbol of her fight and her freedom. She knew she still had many battles ahead, but she also knew she was ready to face them. This was just the beginning of a journey filled with discoveries and challenges, but for the first time in a long while, Lauren felt in control of her life. The following days brought new challenges, but also ignited an even greater determination in Lauren. While Arthur delved deeper into his investigations, Lauren channeled her energy into making Revive a reality. However, Catherine's sabotage continued to haunt her. One morning, as Lauren unlocked the studio, she noticed the door slightly ajar. Her heart raced as she stepped inside, only to be greeted by chaos. The mannequins had been toppled over, fabrics were strewn across the floor, and her sketches lay torn to shreds. The sight was devastating. Chloe arrived minutes later and was equally horrified by the damage. "This isn't a coincidence, Lauren. Someone's trying to destroy you, and we both know exactly who it is," Chloe said, attempting to comfort her while calling Caleb. Lauren sank into a chair, staring at the fragments of her hard work scattered around her. Tears silently streamed down her face, but even amidst the pain, she felt a surge of strength. Catherine wanted to break her, but Lauren was determined not to let her win. Caleb arrived quickly, accompanied by Arthur. The investigator meticulously examined the scene, taking photos and collecting any evidence he could find. Meanwhile, Caleb hugged Lauren tightly. "We'll get through this, Fur. Catherine may think she has power, but you have something she'll never possess: courage." Arthur discovered signs of forced entry at the lock and identified footprints that could lead to a suspect. He promised to update Lauren as soon as he uncovered more. In the meantime, she focused on rebuilding the studio. There was no time to wallow. Her priority was to restore the space and keep her plans on track. That evening at home, Lauren received a call from Arthur. "Lauren, I need to meet with you. I found something important," he said in a serious tone. The next day, they met at a discreet cafe in the city center. Arthur presented photos and documents he had uncovered. Among them was a bank transfer made by Catherine to a man with a criminal record. "This is Peter Young. He has a history of break-ins and intimidation. Catherine hired this man to threaten and sabotage your studio," Arthur explained. Lauren felt a mix of anger and relief. Having concrete proof against Catherine gave her a sense of justice on the horizon. Yet it was terrifying to realize how far Catherine was willing to go. "And Daniel? Is he involved in this?" Lauren asked. Arthur hesitated before answering. "I haven't found direct evidence yet, but he knew what was happening. It's almost certain he's complicit with his mother." Lauren closed her eyes for a moment, trying to process the information. It was hard to believe that someone she had once planned to share her life with was involved in something so vile. But instead of crumbling, she turned that pain into fuel. Back at the studio, Lauren gathered Chloe and Caleb to discuss the findings. They decided it was time to take more decisive action. First, Arthur would continue gathering evidence. Second, Lauren would do something Catherine would never expect: expose everything publicly. "Catherine wants to intimidate me in silence, but I won't stay quiet anymore. I want everyone to know what she's doing," Lauren declared firmly. Caleb agreed, though he couldn't hide his concern. "You know this will create an open war, right?" he asked. "I know, but I'm already in this war, and I'm going to win." That night, as Lauren looked at the new sketches in her partially reorganized studio, she felt a new kind of strength within her. Catherine could try to tear everything down, but Lauren was more determined than ever to protect what she was building. And now she had a powerful weapon on her side: the truth. The news of Catherine's sabotage and Lauren's plans began to circulate among close friends and acquaintances. While Arthur continued gathering enough evidence to take the case forward, Lauren started crafting a strategy for a public expose. She knew that to destabilize Catherine, she needed to be both strategic and, above all, courageous. A few days later, Lauren received an unexpected invitation to a local fashion event, a fair that brought together regional designers. She saw this as an opportunity. Despite her studio still being in recovery, she decided to participate. She would use the event not only to showcase her talent, but also to face Catherine head-on if she dared to show up. On the morning of the event, as Lauren prepared her pieces for display, she received an ominous message from an unknown number. "You're meddling where you shouldn't. Watch your choices. It was clearly another intimidation tactic, but Lauren refused to be shaken. When she arrived at the event venue, she felt the weight of people's gazes. Some whispered, while others looked on with curiosity. Among the crowd, Lauren spotted Catherine in the distance, accompanied by a man she recognized from Arthur's photos, Peter Young. His intimidating demeanor and presence by Catherine's side reinforced the underlying threat. Lauren took a deep breath and proceeded with her presentation. She displayed a collection of pieces she had carefully designed, each one symbolizing themes of rebirth and resilience. Guests were impressed, and several approached to compliment her work. As she spoke with a small group, Catherine approached, her smile as false as it was disdainful. "How interesting, Lauren. Do you really think you can compete at this level?" Catherine said in a low, venomous tone. Without hesitation, Lauren replied firmly, "I'm not competing, Catherine. I'm building something you'll never understand. Something real and made with love." Catherine raised her eyebrows, surprised by Lauren's boldness. Before she could retort, one of the event organizers who had overheard the exchange stepped in. "Lauren, your collection is one of the most praised today. Congratulations on your incredible work." He shot a pointed glance at Catherine before walking away. The public humiliation left Catherine seething. She withdrew to a secluded corner where she began whispering with Peter. Lauren sensed something was wrong but refused to let it distract her. Later, as Lauren packed up her things at the end of the event, Arthur called with an important update. "Lauren, I've accessed financial records that link Catherine to at least 3 actions against you, including the break-in at your studio. We have enough evidence to take this to the authorities," Arthur said with determination in his voice. Lauren felt a mix of relief and apprehension. She knew that confronting Catherine both publicly and legally would be challenging, but it was the only way to end the cycle of abuse. That night, back at her studio, Lauren began drafting an official statement. She decided to give an interview to share her story. Catherine wanted silence, but Lauren would bring a voice to what she had endured. It wasn't just for herself, it was for everyone who had ever been intimidated or silenced. Deep down, she knew the battle was far from over. Catherine still wielded power and influence, but Lauren was no longer willing to hide. She looked at the line of mannequins in her studio and felt a surge of determination. Each of those designs represented more than fashion. They embodied her struggle, her pain, and most importantly, her strength. The next morning, Lauren woke up resolute to take the next step. Armed with the evidence Arthur had gathered, she scheduled an interview with Caroline Parker, a local journalist known for her fearless reporting on impactful stories. Exposing the truth was a risky decision, but Lauren knew it was the only way to neutralize Catherine and prevent others from becoming her victims. The meeting took place at a discreet cafe in the city center. Caroline arrived promptly, carrying a notepad and recorder. She greeted Lauren with a warm smile. "Lauren, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. I'm impressed by your courage. Shall we begin?" Caroline asked, setting up her recorder. Lauren took a deep breath and began recounting her story, from the disastrous wedding to the orchestrated sabotages by Catherine. With each detail, Caroline appeared increasingly shocked, especially when Lauren presented the evidence Arthur had collected. Bank transfers, threatening messages, and photographs directly linking Catherine to the attacks. "Catherine tried to silence me, but that's no longer an option. I want everyone to know what she's done, and how she used her power to try to destroy my life and career," Lauren said with unwavering determination. Caroline ensured the article highlighted Lauren's resilience and the positive impact Revive was beginning to have on the local community. The interview was published the following day under the striking headline, "Courage and Rebirth, a designer's fight against abuse of power." The response was immediate. Messages of support poured in from friends and strangers alike, many of whom resonated with her story. But as expected, Catherine reacted. She called Lauren that evening, her voice dripping with anger. "For you have no idea what you've done. You've just made yourself my public enemy. Prepare to face the consequences," Catherine threatened before abruptly hanging up. Rather than intimidate her, the threat only bolstered Lauren's resolve. The next day, she received an unexpected summons, an invitation to a formal meeting with Catherine's legal team. Caleb and Arthur insisted that she not go alone. On the appointed morning, Lauren arrived accompanied by both men carrying all the evidence in hand. Entering the luxurious meeting room, she was greeted by Catherine and her lawyers, who tried to mask their unease. Catherine offered a cold smile. "I hope this can be resolved discreetly for everyone's sake," Catherine said with false politeness. Lauren remained composed and replied firmly, "Discreet is no longer an option. You made this public with your actions. Now I'm taking it all the way." The meeting quickly escalated into a tense exchange of arguments, but Catherine had underestimated the strength of the evidence Arthur had gathered. When it became clear that the situation was not in her favor, Catherine lost her composure. She stood abruptly, pointing her finger at Lauren. "You don't know who you're messing with, girl. This isn't over," Catherine shouted before being calmed by her own lawyer. Her outburst was the confirmation Lauren needed. She was on the right track. With the evidence submitted to the authorities and growing support from the media and community, she felt the tide turning in her favor. Back at the studio, Lauren felt the weight of the day but also a renewed energy. Her friends and collaborators stood by her, helping prepare the new collection for a major upcoming event. Every piece was imbued with the story of resilience that Lauren was living. That night, as she gazed out at the city from her studio window, Lauren reflected on how far she had come. She knew the battle with Catherine was far from over, but she also knew she was stronger than ever. Her story was no longer just about survival, it was about triumph. Most importantly, it was about learning to transform pain into art. Lauren woke up to the persistent sound of notifications on her phone. Caroline Parker article was still making waves, and now other platforms and media outlets were eager to cover the story. Messages of support flooded Revive's social media accounts, but among the encouraging words were a few veiled threats, clearly orchestrated by Catherine and her allies. Despite this, Lauren stood her ground. With Caleb and Arthur by her side, she began organizing a press conference. It would be an opportunity not only to reveal the full truth of what she had endured, but also to reinforce Revive's purpose, to be a symbol of resilience and transformation. As preparations for the event progressed, Arthur arrived with significant new developments. "Lauren, I've uncovered more evidence. Recent bank transfers show that Catherine didn't act alone. Daniel was directly involved. He knew everything and actively participated in some decisions, including the break-in at your studio." The news hit Lauren like a blow. While she had already suspected Daniel's complicity, the confirmation stirred deep feelings of betrayal and anger. Instead of succumbing to despair, she used it as fuel to push forward. "This only strengthens my resolve to expose everything. They tried to destroy me, but I'll show them I'm not their victim. I'm stronger than that." The night before the press conference, Lauren felt a mix of anxiety and determination. Chloe stayed by her side, helping her choose the outfit she would wear. They settled on a simple yet elegant dress designed by Lauren herself, a piece that symbolized her struggle and triumph. "You're going to shine, Fer. This is your chance to show the world who you really are," Chloe said, holding her hands. On the day of the conference, the small auditorium was packed with journalists, photographers, and even local influencers. Lauren stepped onto the stage with Caleb and Arthur seated in the front row. Under the glare of camera flashes, she recounted her story, this time with a clarity and confidence that left the audience in awe. "For months, I faced threats, sabotage, and attempts to silence me. But today I stand here because I believe no one should live in fear. Catherine and Daniel tried to use their power to break me, but I turned it into strength to rebuild. Revive is not just a fashion studio. It's proof that we can overcome any obstacle when we believe in ourselves." Lauren presented the evidence Arthur had gathered, announcing that it was already part of an active legal case. The revelations shocked the journalists, and the follow-up questions were filled with support and admiration. The press conference was a resounding success, and its impact was immediate. Public opinion began to turn against Catherine and Daniel. Some brands associated with Catherine began severing ties, unwilling to be linked to the scandal. That evening, as Lauren celebrated the event's success with Caleb, Chloe, and Arthur, she received an unexpected phone call. It was Daniel. "Lauren, we need to talk. I made mistakes, but this has gotten out of hand. My mother, she's willing to do anything, and I never wanted it to go this far." His voice was filled with regret, but Lauren was not inclined to waver. "Daniel, you made your choice. Now I've made mine. Don't try to justify the unjustifiable. Goodbye." She hung up without hesitation, feeling freer than ever. Catherine and Daniel might still be a threat, but Lauren knew she now had the tools and support to face whatever came next. As she gazed at the stars from Revive's balcony that night, Lauren felt an unexpected peace. The battle was far from over, but she had already won so much. Her inner strength was greater than any external threat, and she knew she was ready for whatever lay ahead. Revive was no longer just a physical space, but a testament to who she had become. Unbreakable. The days following the press conference were intense. Catherine and Daniel, now publicly exposed, began facing the consequences of their actions. Catherine, however, wasn't one to give up easily. She continued using her influence behind the scenes, attempting to discredit Lauren within the fashion industry, but met increasing resistance at every turn. Meanwhile, Arthur compiled additional evidence for the legal case. Detailed bank transfers, intercepted messages, and testimonies from former employees of Catherine formed a robust dossier. The case was now being reviewed by authorities, and a hearing was scheduled for the coming weeks. Tensions ran high, but Lauren felt that justice was finally within reach. At the same time, Revive was beginning to thrive. With the support of her team, Lauren organized an exclusive fashion show to present her new collection. The event would be small but meaningful, a celebration of everything she had overcome and a symbol of her resilience. On the evening of the show, the studio was packed. Clients, journalists, and close friends filled the space, and the energy was electric. Each piece showcased a chapter of Lauren's journey: airy fabrics representing freedom, bold cuts symbolizing courage, and delicate details reflecting resilience. When the show concluded, the audience gave a standing ovation. Lauren stepped onto the stage, tears glistening in her eyes. "This show isn't just about fashion," Lauren began, her voice steady despite the emotion. "It's about transformation, about overcoming our fears and finding strength in the unlikeliest places. Thank you to everyone who believed in me when it seemed impossible. Revive is more than a studio, it's a promise that no one can dim our light." The applause was thunderous, and as Lauren greeted supporters and friends afterward, she noticed Arthur approaching with a serious expression. "Lauren, we need to talk. I've uncovered something new about Catherine. It appears she's planning to flee the country before the hearing," Arthur said quietly. Lauren's heart raced. The thought of Catherine evading justice was alarming, but Arthur had already alerted the authorities, and steps were being taken to prevent her escape. Still, Catherine had allies and remained unpredictable. That same night on her way home, Lauren noticed a car following her. For a moment, fear threatened to overwhelm her, but she reminded herself of everything she had endured. She calmly parked in a busy area and immediately called Arthur. The suspicious car disappeared before he arrived, but the incident reinforced that Catherine was still a looming threat. Days later, the courtroom was tense as Lauren entered, accompanied by Caleb, Chloe, and Arthur. Catherine sat with her legal team, her once confident demeanor now visibly shaken. Arthur's evidence was damning, and the testimonies from Lauren and others were decisive. When it was Lauren's turn to testify, she spoke with unwavering courage. "Catherine tried to destroy my life and my career. She believed she could intimidate me into silence, but she failed. I'm here today because I believe no one is above the law, and that abuse of power must be challenged." The courtroom was silent as her words resonated. When the verdict was announced, Catherine was found guilty of defamation, conspiracy, and intimidation. She received a severe sentence. Daniel, having partially cooperated with the investigation, received a reduced but still significant punishment. Justice had been served. Walking out of the courthouse, Lauren felt a profound sense of relief and liberation. The weight she had carried for so long seemed to lift, leaving her lighter and freer than she had felt in years. As she strolled through the plaza with Caleb and Chloe, the warmth of the sun on her face seemed to reflect the hope blossoming within her. Revive was no longer just a fashion studio. It was a symbol of Pateri. The battle with Catherine and Daniel had come to an end, but Lauren's journey was only beginning. She was ready for the next chapter of her life, confident that this time she would be the one writing the story. The sun rose over Santa Fe, casting a golden glow over the city's vibrant streets, and at its heart, Revive. The studio, now a lively and celebrated space, welcomed clients from far and wide, drawn not only by its unique creations, but by the story of resilience it represented. For Lauren, Revive was more than a business. It was a testament to her courage and a symbol of her rebirth. With Catherine and Daniel finally out of the picture, Lauren found the peace that had eluded her for so long. The media continued to follow her story, but now the spotlight illuminated her achievements. Her latest collection had been a resounding success, garnering invitations to international exhibitions and events. For the first time, she allowed herself to dream big, free from the shadows of her past. Lauren's journey wasn't just about professional triumphs. In the months following the trial, she began rediscovering what it meant to live for herself. During a walk through the city, she unexpectedly ran into an old childhood friend, Aaron, a photographer who had recently returned after years of working abroad. "Lauren, I can't believe it. Are you the Lauren everyone's talking about?" Aaron exclaimed with a warm smile. The reunion brought a lightness Lauren hadn't felt in years. Aaron was witty, intelligent, and most importantly, understood her scars without trying to erase them. He respected her space but encouraged her to explore new horizons. What began as friendship gradually blossomed into something more. But Lauren took her time, knowing that rebuilding her life was not a race. As her personal life flourished, so did Revive. Lauren decided to expand the studio, not just physically but in purpose. She introduced workshops to teach local youth how to design and sew, providing opportunities for those who dreamed of a career in fashion but lacked the means to pursue it. One evening, after finishing one of these workshops, Lauren sat at her work table surrounded by sketches and fabrics. Aaron walked in, holding his camera and smiling. "Are you ready? I want to capture the moment when this becomes bigger than you ever imagined," he said, adjusting the lens. Lauren laughed but agreed to pose. Aaron captured her essence in that moment, a strong, confident and vibrant woman. The photograph became a symbol of Revive, used to promote the studio and everything it stood for. Time passed, and Lauren found herself more fulfilled than she had ever dreamed. Her designs began appearing on international runways, and she received accolades for her contributions to fashion and her community. Most importantly, Lauren felt she had rediscovered her true self. The pain of her past had transformed into fuel for her art and her purpose. One morning, as she walked through the quiet studio before opening, Lauren paused in front of a mirror and smiled at her reflection. The woman she saw was unrecognizable from the one who had walked away from a humiliating marriage months earlier. She was now the author of her own story, and every line in her designs was a reminder that new beginnings weren't just possible, they were powerful. Lauren opened Revive's doors and let the sunlight flood in. It was a new day, and once again she was ready to shine.